probably not needed. So we'll move on to item 5.1. Can I have a move and a second for that item, please? And that's the recommendation to remove R011. That's the organisational cohesion risk from the operational risk dashboard. That's on page 20. So I have a move and a second for that.
I'll move that.
No, I'll second it. Everybody seems to be there. So for points of discussion, now we're going to discussion of item 5.1. Any comments?
I had highlighted a couple of things, I think. I'll just find them. Okay. So I was quite surprised that the survey that came out, I was one of two, because I remember doing it, that responded to it. I guess, does that mean that it is no longer a burning platform because elected members didn't respond to it? Or is it simply that elected members were potentially swamped down with other mahi why they didn't respond to it? I don't think we can say that that is an indication that it's no longer a burning platform. You could read into that if you wanted to, but I just thought that if elected members were to have given that response, if they were potentially given it in front of them at the end of, say, a council meeting, that they would have possibly had many things to say. So I just, when I read that, it indicates that it's no longer a burning platform. I think if we were to ask all of the members, they actually would disagree with that. I also just highlighted that in that council mark shadow assessment, we have a good mix of youth and passion, experience and wisdom amongst our elected members, and I like that we have that good mix. And those were the things that I had highlighted. I mean, I think that this is something that should always be in our minds, organisational cohesion. Right? If it doesn't have enough of a score for it to be on the actual dashboard, then so be it. But of course, we should always have that in the forefront of our minds, along with everything else too.
So before, I think Jamie's going to give you an answer to that. Before I'll put another question into the mix, and that is, can you define organisational cohesion? What do you mean by it before you give the answer? Because when I look at it, it seems to be relating to the conduct of councils and various other things, and I would have thought there's more depth to that than just that. And on that basis, I did have queries myself. Is it fully been mitigated against, given that you're looking at from the CE down in terms of organisational cohesion? Not that really mentioned that much in the report. Jamie.
Through the chair. So to answer both those questions, I'll start with the second one first, if that's okay. So the definition around organisational cohesion came from you. So when we developed the organisational risk dashboard, we put up, we went through our process where we looked at, the risks, and we scored an adherence score, and we did the work where we identified, the impact and probability of those risks, and we worked with you to develop the dashboard. So organisational cohesion refers specifically to the relationship between governance and our executive, and how we support you in performing your governance functions. So you would have seen from the report that this is a really good news story, that we, on a number of metrics and a number of independent sources, have told us that we've got the governance executive relationship gripped. And that was particularly picked up with the council mark assessors. So to answer Councillor Tepania's question, we're interpreting that survey result in the context of everything else that suggests that it's no longer a burning platform, and of course we're open to any feedback to the contrary.
Yep. Comments? Thanks, James. Any comment, Mickey? I'm just looking at the chair. There's two chairs sitting here, which they may comment if they wish. Comment from
I sometimes think that lack of engagement might not mean that it's no longer a burning issue, but rather we're over talking about it, nothing gets done. Now, I'm not saying that this is the case here, but I'm just
Like voter turnout.
sorry.
Like voter turnout.
Yeah,
47% turning out doesn't mean that the other 53%
are happy.
are happy.
It was more likely that they just can't get across anymore.
Yeah.
Because nothing ever gets done. So it's just a warning there. But no, just making a point there.
Yep. Matty, do you wish to make a comment?
No, I'm okay, John, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Matty. Yeah, just adding, so thanks, Jamie, for the comment. I'll just add a quick comment. Yeah, we did define organisational cohesion, and it is focusing mostly about where we were, and it's good to see that we have made improvements in that area. So that's a plus. Let's keep it up. It's not, and the other comment I want to make, we're not losing this risk. The risk is still there. We're just identifying it and saying that it may not be as high or warrant is placing at the moment, but it's still there. So keep your eyes open, your ears open, and we'll go forward. So I'll put it to the vote. So all in favour? Right. That's carried. We'll go to item 6.1, which is our informational reports. And that's on page 25. Do I have a move and a second that the Assurance Risk and Finance Committee received the report, Council Financial Report for the period ending 28th of February 2021? Do I have a move and a second for that? Well, I'll move it then. Now the second of that. So now I'll start this time. Just some comments on there. On page 29, I see the capital expenditure. There's quite a variation. So I'll comment on that one, Sean. There's a 40% difference. And just on the note, I noticed that further on, you make reference to that as well. And that's on page 34. And the percent variation is 28%. The figures are the same, so there's presumably error. So that's one comment. Do you want to, can I get an answer or question?
I'm looking to Helen in a second, but may I just get those page numbers again, please?
Yeah, page 29.
Page 29, yeah.
Page 29, it's the capital expenditure item year end. Now this is a forecast, I realise that.
Yeah.
So just so we're clear, and it's got a significant annual forecast spend, which is quite a variation of the budget. So that's and then there's a potential error showing the same figures on page 34 as mentioned, and it's over 28% calculation on that one. Yeah, the 40% calculation on the correct one. So it's just really a comment on that capital expenditure forecast at the end.
Page 44, I'm seeing operational expenditure.
Oh, 34, sorry, 34, don't say 34. I meant 34, sorry.
Okay.
At the top portion of the page.
Got it.
So that just simply could be an error, sure, typo, if I'm reading it right. But more my question is around, if you look at where we are at the moment, our current year to date, for capital expenditure is down by 15%, and the forecast is that it's going to be over by 40%.
So reading the two figures, page 34, there are two panels, the left-hand side of which is the one you've cited on the earlier page.
I cited both of them.
Yeah, and it's the numbers are the same as in the first reference. There's an additional panel on the right. So the first panel is year-to-date figures only, and the additional figures are out-turn. So variance on the budget, annual forecast.
40%. So So between now and the end of year, there's going to be significant
Extra expenditure.
And I just want to.
Now, Janice will comment on this too in a second, but I've just had this conversation with GM Alliance this morning. The intention was that we would break out the ESIO funding, the Economic Stimulus and Employment Opportunity funding, from the main reporting, because it's obviously less helpful to elected members to see that we're going to spend 128% of our budget, when really that's hiding the fact that we have a $50 or so million capital budget in the IM space, and then we have another $60 million, which we're going to, some of it's attributed to this financial year, in the external funding that came from the PGF and other sources. So thanks for the question, because we've got it under action to break these out better for you, and indeed Janice has done that in some reporting, but it's just not apparent. Yeah, may I ask myself to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so Janice can please comment. This is a public meeting, and that clearly is a question that will be on many a person's mind. So.
The questions do I move the different or what?
Oh no, don't worry about the typo here. Well, if it is.
Yeah, we've got the proxies. We've taken on page 34. The 28% is measuring the variance against the forecast instead of the budget. So the 40% is the correct number.
40% is the correct number.
Just need to correct that in the
so that's a correction note. But if you look at page 29, then as Sean CE said, there is a good reason for that overspend, and I just wanted to public comment on it.
The overspend is about the external funding being amalgamated in the tables, but you've got some work planned to separate those, haven't you, Janice?
I've just made a note of that because we have separated it for the purposes when we're reporting back to IAMS, so we need to change the body of this report to include it in here as well.
Yeah.
So we separate three things. We separate the main programme from the stimulus programme from the Three Waters reform programme, because we've got two distinct external
So, comments from other members? You must have some comments there, surely.
Yes, Mr. Chief, I've got a few.
Yep.
Just I picked up on page 34. District-wide sludge management is under budget. Sludge work has been delayed due to lack of resourcing and COVID-19. Work is ongoing and commitments have been raised. I think I remember it would have been maybe 3 ARF committee meetings ago, or it might have been council itself, where we had a sludge update. We know that sludge is a huge issue for this district, and that when I did the calculations, pretty much since the amalgamations, we've never actually done anything about it until now. So it is a real priority, I think, and I just wanted to know what was that lack of resourcing? Was it the staffing to the contractors that were doing that work, or that comment around the lack of resourcing? Because I thought that we had actually put in the resourcing to action this, and it's showing up in with that statement there.
Yep. Do you want to answer, Ellen?
Thank you, through the chair. So thanks for the question. The district, the sludge work has been happening a bit haphazardly, unfortunately, and part of it is through resources, and a part of it is through resources moving around within the teams within IAMS as well. And we do now have some more dedicated focus to it, and this morning I committed to the infrastructure committee that we will have an update for them at the next meeting. So that is something that we need to put more focus into, and there are various things. There are lots of things that are feeding into that, including the recent settlement with the Taipa wastewater treatment plant as well. So we've got multiple streams of activity happening, but we do need to update everybody on what is actually going on.
Thank you. And I just said one more.
Sean was going to comment on that last slide.
Just one more, that we just remind ourselves collectively that there was no such thing as a sludge strategy 14 months ago. This council never seemed to have one. So, yeah, we're tested now, but at least we've got some form around this.
Good question. What next?
And then could I get on page 37, 36, 37, unbudgeted capital works that are in there. Oh, I just wanted to use this, it's in there and use it as an opportunity to give it a bit of a plug-in. The Kōtui Library license and subscription software license fees. My family are actually avid library users of our physical libraries, and I only just recently came across the plethora of online library, I don't know, what do you call it, services that Far North Libraries actually provide. It is amazing. We have like 14 different apps that you can access through this funding that's been put through there. A really good example that everyone in the Far North should take advantage of, if you've got a phone or an iPad, is the Press Reader app is one of them. And through that, you can access all of our papers and like almost every paper and magazine in the whole wide world. Which is really cool because you go to click to read something on the Advocate and it says you need a premium subscription to do so. Well, through the library, you can actually get it for free. You can access it and it will download to your phone automatically and ping you when it's ready. Sometimes Advocate's ready at 2 a.m. Sometimes it's ready at 6 a.m. But I just wanted to use that as a plug-in because we've got it here. It's on this list here and it's got a budget to go with it. But it is actually really cool what you can do.
Thanks, Mark. You raised it before, and now I'm thinking of joining because we'd be spending good money going. Any other comments on this document? Maddie, any comment? You good?
No, I'm good.
Page 35, then I'll have a comment. I noticed one of our biggest projects, not the biggest, is Kiriki Wastewater Treatment Plant has gone over budget. Can I get a comment on that? Because I got no indication of what that means. It's a big spend and a little bit over budget could mean a lot or not. So that's one comment. And while you're at it, also the north ceiling is 56 completed and there's an issue there with the risk. I'm worried about the risk in terms of seeding aggregate. And why I'm worried about the seeding aggregate is just again with delays. I understand there is probably a bitumen plant in Monterey. But I don't know if that's the problem or it's where it's coming from. So those two comments, probably a bit, and then Adele, I think you have a question as well.
Just one item there, the Te Huku Sports Netball Court. That project didn't attract a person to take up the tender. So obviously it's going to go out for tender again. Has any of the firms in Kaitoa actually, or in the farm, been approached at all?
Yeah, they declined to tender, I believe. No, they didn't tender when it went out.
No, I know, but I mean, has someone done a, tender and approached a couple of the?
You mean physically tapped on shoulders and said, hey, please.
It's a bit of a worry because they're going to go through another winter.
Yeah.
With courts that are really unsafe. And, through shame.
Yeah. So anyway, so going back to what I previously asked, is this potential risk in our delivery if we can't get sealed, and the other one is any financial risks we're facing going over budget. What order of magnitude with Kiriki Wastewater? And that finishes my questions really. So have I somebody to respond to that?
Just refresh to the page again.
So you're looking at page 35. Thank you. It's the Kiriki Wastewater Treatment Plant gone over budget, and this is for the new works. And the renewals are actually under budget. I presume that's the old plant, which is if you've got a new plant coming along, that makes sense. And on page 31, our north ceiling is behind because of seeding aggregate supply. And why it's a concern, I also realise that there is issues with Marsden Point possibly being reduced, and I'm just wondering if this problem is going to increase, and we are going to be competing, Auckland Force seal aggregate.
Chair, it sounds Mike, we may need to go away and then come back to you with answers to
Kerry wastewater treatment plant, I know it is over, I do not know the numbers, and so I will need to take that away and get the numbers for you. And
come back to you.
I checked with my team before the meeting around roading because I was reading quite a few comments in there around the roading programme. And the feedback that I've got is that the resource issues have now been addressed and that the MTA is now fully geared up to fully spend budget.
Oh, good. It's excellent. Thank you.
And I'm just checking on the Kirikiri wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, there's no other further comments. I'll leave you to keep on that, and I'm going to put it to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So I'll now move on to item 6.2, that Assurance Risk and Finance Committee receive a report, risk progress report for programme of externally funded projects. Do I have a move a seconder for that? No, the second for that. Comments on those, please? Any issues that people may see there, questions they may have?
I just have a question. Kaito Innovative Streets, what is that?
Someone can answer that?
Innovative Streets was a community program funded by NZTA, where we, Andy Finch, was the catalyst for bringing community groups together to bid for street work, if you like. There were 3 wins for our council. One of them was in the Temple country. And the particular details of that, maybe Helen can help, but I think it's something to do with speed control on the main street, might be to do with street painting or something like that.
From memory, from what I remember from Anna, from Arco, who was a part of it, was using street painting to traffic calm the recreation in Mangakahia Road intersection, where we've got heaps of schools on one side of the state highway, logging trucks coming through to make it safer to cross there. And then other one was around the linkage to town from the cycle trail down by the dump? Was that one?
Yeah, I don't know the locations, but definitely, yeah. The activity was definitely about that.
I know, because I mean, there's also ongoing work, council budgeted work, council's funded work, and I just wondered whether there was any tie-up or crossover or subsidy or whatever. I mean, I'd hate to find out that of the $800,000 in the long-term funding, $200,000 was supplied in the end by some grant, when it should have been plus 200, not minus 200. So I am concerned about that.
I can take that away and find it out.
Yeah. And I believe a lot of this material of the Innovative Streets funds that ARCA was involved in is online. I think the work that they did is online. Not necessarily what is currently running, but I think there's a lot of that information online as well. Any other comments on this report?
I just had a question on page 49. Multi is a supplier diversity specialist. Is that a company, organisation, individual, consultant? Specialises in additional support services for Māori and Pacifica businesses. I've never actually heard of this organisation or person before, but it's quite interesting. It looks like something.
I'm not sure if it's a government agency or an NGO, but it is an organisation, not an individual, and it's to assist those who procure with improving social procurement it's sanctioned by government. I suspect it is actually government form. Probably my best guess is sitting under Department of Internal Affairs, but why don't I just Google that while we're having another conversation?
I just did, because I had heard about it in connection with Cleary domain, but I hadn't really considered what it was. And it says it's the New Zealand Government's intermediary for supply diversity working across Aotearoa to connect organisations to Maori Pacific Road businesses.
MB probably, rather than DIA.
I think, it's looking like MB to me.
Yeah, I believe when Carolyn Wilson and I went down to see the social procurement, remember that project, we to South Auckland, and it came out of the South Auckland initiative, and they agreed to help us. So that's where they actually fit in this area, and they've done a lot of work in getting together a number of New Zealand-wide businesses that fit, and that's why it's got Māori and Pacifica. Because in South Auckland there's a high Pacific population as well, and they've built a database.
Through you, Chair, if I might, the feedback from Caroline and all the team that have been involved is that the work is of the highest order.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So does that answer the question? But certainly go on and look them up.
A hidden treasure?
Yeah. In fact, I'd encourage, because it's open to, I'd encourage Māori Pacific businesses in the north to actually put, and that's open as well, to put their references in there and connections. And it does raise another question. Some of these things I've highlighted is the outcomes of the PGF funding were to create jobs, and there's a number of things there, and that's why that group is involved. It's not easy to actually achieve all of that, and I'm just wondering, Sean, do you want to sort of comment on some of the feedback we've had, so we can hear how well our sustained procurement is actually achieving those goals?
Helen might back me up, but I'd be brave enough to say that given the local government sector, our council's leading the way. Some of that's to do with the fact that when I went down to South Auckland, probably 6 months before this was a conversation under the PGF to look at what the Southern Initiative TSI was looking at. We attended a conference down there and made some connections. We came back and took Caroline Wilson out of the normal workforce and dedicated that resource to the formation of a sustainable procurement policy, which you elected members were intimate with, because you struck the priorities for us about what the things we wanted to see our suppliers challenged on, including Māori employment, local purchases and the like. And we were 3/4 of the way there by the time it suddenly became a very big deal. If you were going to bid for successfully external funding, you needed to prove that you were going to lift your local economy so that the government could be seen to target more specifically where it was achieving benefit. So the sorts of things that are in my mind are that even before then you had within the NTA, it's by your stipulation that 30% of subcontract procurement has to be through local suppliers. Right through to the rather radical supplier forums that we ran, one in this room and one up in Kaitaia, where we got an average of about 30 mum and dad companies in each of those two venues, pulled North Tech into the room, pulled TPK and MSD, and said to them, declared to them, we have got this much capital funding coming. We've been successful in the bids, but we've got no idea how we're going to end it with our limited capacity. Can you respond? And the conversations that they have with supporting agencies has resulted in some stats that I don't have to hand, Helen, but we've put numerous mum and dad companies through site-wise accreditations, working at height courses and the like, and we have, I saw some figures around 80 mark for people we've employed who are not previously suppliers in those projects. We can get more specific detail for you if you like, but this is very real. And when we sit in front of multi-agency forums at the Interim Regional Skills Leadership Group, it's really proud time for us, because we're able to show off in very tangible terms that social procurement's got right on the road for our council.
David Clamp is collecting a lot of that information for the reporting for the PGF funded projects. So some of you will have heard him talking a couple of weeks ago on exactly that, particularly about the training and the use of the warehouse up in Kaitaia for that at heights training, which has been invaluable for enabling several people to take on pieces of work that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do.
Yep, great. Thank you, Sean.
We would declare that with potential downturns in roading expenditure after the COVID crisis and not collecting our fuel tax, and that's just roads, we're wondering how we sustain the extra workforce that we've mobilised. We did have plans, but now we're looking keenly to yesterday's government announcement about $3.8 billion to be spent on infrastructure to sustain new housing projects and other places like that, to say how do we, when the PGF work's complete, how do we keep these new mobilised companies employed? Just so you know, it's on our radar.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. Any other questions regarding this report?
I have one more quickly to add, Chair. That's on page 50, the ratepayer affordability. It says there that 20% of our ratepayers have household incomes of less than $30,000 per annum. And I looked up what nationally that is so that it would give me some context. Nationally, it's 8.5%, so you can really see the difference that we have here in the Far North in terms of a huge, significant number of our ratepayers are on less than 30,000 per annum than the national average. Yeah. So affordability really is an issue for us.
Yeah, and then going into the new round of the long-term plan, I think, and that's why I'm looking at questions about how we rate as well. Thank you for raising that, because I had highlighted it. The other side of that coin, which it shows that only 1% have incomes above 70k, and I think nationally that's probably quite a bit different as well. So yeah, it is an issue, and we are aware of it. So I'm going to put to the vote for this report, item 6.2. All in favour? Against? Carried. So now we go to the March Risk Management report, which is information report item 6.3. Do I have a mover that the Assurance Risk and Finance Committee receive the report? March Risk Management. I'll move it. Do I have a seconder? The elected, the chair is allowed to, well, one chair in particular is allowed to move in second as well. Just a minute. So, any comments on this, please? I know we had a bit of a workshop beforehand, and we looked at the climate change. And there's a list of our risks. Comments from members. No comments? You want to?
Just an additional piece of information. Sorry, Jeremy, I haven't caught up with my own executive on acting GM on this, but a request from elected members was that we add a line to our compliance schedule on all papers, which we've done in the past, even though it's a statutory appeal. It's mainly for local government. We've added some elements in there to make sure we're thinking about Māori and disability and other issues in our district we're addressing. Minister Rachel Smith have asked for climate change to be added, which we're now in the process of action through Jamie.
That's really great. All the different lenses, whenever we make decisions or have information, the different lenses we need to have on making them.
Yes. Okay. No comments on this report?
I did. Yes. I circled one thing that was that over the first 3 years of the next LTP cycle, a total of 973,000 is included for climate change adaptation. I guess for me, I don't know if it's enough. I don't know how that stacks up in the bigger picture. It's just the figure, but I would like to know. And that's just an observation, which I know that we will be including going forward, but I just observed it.
Right, thank you. I'll make a comment. Again, probably because we've just had a bit of a workshop and we looked at climate change, which is included in this report, we are going to be splitting it and looking in more detail in two areas. That's internally, our obligations as council and our areas we're looking, but also how we can, and what we do, assist with the public, help reduce various emissions and help offset or mitigate against the effects of climate change. I think climate change is one of those areas that needs to be a little bit more detailed in terms of what we're doing and ensure that we actually are doing, making changes that show measurable improvements. Given the high risk that we're actually facing if we get it wrong, but also given the high risk if we get our policies wrong as well, we could actually in fact make it worse rather than improving it. So that's about, and everybody around this table was really at this workshop, so I would expect more questions to be answered given the high risk item that's there. I think it's because we have that workshop. Maybe a fair comment. Yeah. Any other comments on this?
Councillor Clendon is our representative on the Climate Change Adaptation Governance Group, which is a four-council collective. Because rather than reinvent the wheel 4 times, this has become the fifth, one of 5 collaborations across the council. So his first meeting is on the 12th of April. If you have some interest in that.
Great. And this being the a risk report, it's about what risk we're facing in council and externally on our ratepayers as well. And that's our focus here. Right, so I'll put this to the vote. All in favour? Aye. Against? It carried. So item 6.4, do I move and second that? And this is on page 78. And so do I move and second that? I'll move that the Assurance Risk and Finance Committee receive and report elected members' sensitive expenditure. I'm not sure what's sensitive, but never mind.
Second.
Sorry? Second. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any comments?
I've got a comment for everything. I just wanted to say that the media training expense that is there was very much worth it. I have done 147 radio interviews since I got elected into council. 147. And I haven't counted up how many news or TV interviews, but it would be more than 20, and that has been invaluable. So.
Yeah, great. Any other comments?
Yeah, I do, John.
Yes. Betty? And then we'll come back to you.
Who makes the decision in council which elected members go on courses or conferences? Who makes that decision?
If I understand right, Matthew, there's work being done by staff who sit down with us verbally and just go through, as part of the governance training, what courses you'd like and do. And then there is, ultimately, it does fall down to, Sean, do you want to speak to that, James?
Through the chair, yes. Democracy Services work with all elected members to develop a professional development plan for you at the beginning of each financial year, where we identify your needs to be the best governance that you can be for the organisation. And generally we try, and so the policy is that it's one training opportunity per role that you have. So if you were a chair, then you'd get an additional role for example. But and that's something we're wanting to build with you on an ongoing basis, that you actually get the real meaning out of doing that professional development plan.
And Matty, I'd encourage all elected members to, improve their skill level. As I think is part of the duty of, and in fact, in all professional levels, that's what really should be done. So Democracy Services is your
well, I think that elected members should be asked to go rattling on what the previous speaker just said. What catches my eye here, let's have a look at the rural provincial one, with Dave Clinton and the Mayor went. I'm just looking at their accommodation. 368, the other one 681. $300 difference. They're in different hotels. What the hell?
Sorry, I missed that question.
It's possible the Mayor was down there for 2 nights rather than 1, is what I read from that.
So through the chair, in general, all the expenditure is scrutinised by the Chief Executive, so there is a process whereby all training requests are signed off, and so we ensure that the money is being prudently.
Chair, there's an additional comment. Hopefully it will add a bit of light. I think the last 12 months has been the most successful that we've had to date, because Caroline and I offered a one-to-one interview with all elected members, and for example, this might be picking on Councillor Tepanea, which is a case in point. We sat down with Moko, we asked him what training needs are, we looked at his portfolio and his skills gaps, and we worked really closely with him to line them up with the appropriate training package that would assist him. And I think from what Moko's just said a few moments ago, we got great bang for the buck, really good value. Ratepayer got excellent value with all those interviews, which I'm sure a talented little Councillor Tepanea is. Without that professional training, it wouldn't have been as effective.
Can I to answer you, Councillor Manny?
Just let me explain this. Explain. What you people should do in regard to courses or conferences, you should have them all available. Turn to the staff, the elected members, say, well, what ones do you want to go on, etc., etc. I've been a councillor for 10 years, and I was only asked once, and it was way back in Wayne Brown's time. You know, I get the impression it's who you know, and I'm not trying to be negative, but that's it. You know, that's how I look at it.
I think, Matty, you would be on there.
You need to publicise that in front of all of us and say, these are the courses that may help you as a elected member, etc., etc., and you may get some benefit out. Are you interested in taking part? Not for me to get this, this sheet on expenses, and I'm looking at them, and I look at several people here, and I say, well, what the hell is going on here? You know, this is ratepayers' money.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Sean here, Councillor Manny, it's a really good point. That's why it's called sensitive expenditure and why we make it transparent like this at Assurance Risk and Finance. We went out to each of the elected members and invited them in to have that conversation with Will and Caroline about what their requirements might be, where they thought their weak suit might be, and how we could help to develop. I know you got that invitation, and I know you're in company with others who didn't want to take up the offer. But can I just reiterate the offer now? If you want to have that conversation now, have another go, we'd be more than happy to sit down with you and have a bit of a chat, work out between us where we can help upskill you in anything that you think you'd like honing in as a governor.
No, you don't have to upskill me. What I'm trying to say, you know, when I look at this, it's a sensitive expenditure. You know, sensitive.
Yes.
Why use that word? Why?
Mainly because there's a central government policy that's called the same name and addresses the same thing for Crown agencies. So we're just following suit really as a local government and recognising that our ratepayers will also be interested in what money we're investing into their elected representatives. So we're just following suit from the Crown, really.
Okay, forget about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, councillor, give us a ring if I can help with anything else.
Hello.
Thanks, Matty.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just knocking on that list of the Tahuku Community Board will do a band rental. I didn't realise it cost so much. I'm sorry. But anyway, we're well worth the actual truck. So we went to T-Cow and we found out about all the water problems and where they wanted to put paths, etc. So we had a good discussion with that community, and then we came on down to Pinui and went on a walk. We were proposing for a walkway, Arathusa. So we had a lovely day, and thank you very much. It was well worth the trip. But we've decided in the future if we're going to do that, we'll take our own vehicles next time and not charge the rate. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? No, I'll put to the vote then. All in favour? Right, carried. That brings us to the end, actually. So, public exclusion. So, I'll move into public exclusion that are given. Do I have a seconder? Put to the vote. All in favour?
Yeah.
Aye. Against? Carried. Super ready to go.
Just dollars into them. And we are live.
So, if you can close, Karakia, thank you.
Draw on the sacredness that we have shared to clear and free our hearts, bodies, and minds. Draw together and affirm this. Unuhia te lutapunui, kia wā te kamama, te ngā te tinana, te wairua I te ara takatu, koe ara e rongo hakairi ake, ki runga kia tīna, haumi e, hui e, tawa ki e. Kia ora.
Thank you, Michael. So thank you, everybody. This brings us to the end of the committee meeting. And thank you to all the staff, everybody being here. See you tomorrow.